Well, greetings again. Back to Genesis. This time in chapter 27, we're going to see the passing of the baton, so to speak, from Isaac, the second of the patriarchs, to Jacob. Now, Isaac has two sons, and neither of them is a good son. They're both bad. They have problems, of course, and God is going to use them, warts and all. He's going to help us see that he can do good things out of bad things. And get a little more light on here. Just give me a moment. And so I want to read some of chapter 27, not all of it, of Genesis. Chapter 27 of Genesis. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." "Here am I," he answered. Isaac said, "I am an old man now and don't know the day of my death. Now then, get your weapons, your quiver and bow, and go out to the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare me some kind of tasty food I like and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my blessing before I die." Now Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau left for the open country to hunt game and bring it back, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "Look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau, 'Bring me some game and prepare me some tasty food to eat, so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die.' Now, my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats, so I can prepare some tasty food for your father, just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father to eat, so that he may give you his blessing before he dies." Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, "But my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I'm a man with smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him and would bring down a curse upon myself rather than a blessing." His mother said to him, "My son, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say. Go and get them for me." So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and she prepared some tasty food just the way his father liked it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. She also covered his hands and the smooth part of his neck with the goatskins. Then she handed to her son Jacob the tasty food and the bread she had made. He went to his father and said, "My father." "Yes, my son," he answered. "Who is it?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." Isaac asked his son, "How did you find it so quickly, my son?" "The Lord your God gave me success," he replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come near so that I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son Esau or not." Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau. So he blessed him. "Are you really my son Esau?" he asked. "I am," he replied. Then he said, "My son, bring some of your game to eat, so that I may give you my blessing." Jacob brought it to him, and he ate. And he brought some wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come here, my son, and kiss me." So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of the field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you of heaven's dew and of earth's riches, an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." After Isaac finished blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father and said to him, "My father, sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing." His father asked him, "Who are you?" "I am your son," he answered, "your firstborn, Esau." Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." Then when Esau heard his father's words, he burst out in a loud, bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me too, my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? He has deceived me these 2 times. He took my birthright, and now he has taken my blessing." Then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, "I have made him lord over you, and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father." Then Esau wept aloud. His father Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's riches, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck." Wow. Well, there's more to it than that, but let's stop there. My goodness, what a story we have written. Now, one of the questions we're going to deal with is this the exercise of human agency, what we would call free will, or is this the working of God in everything and behind the scenes to work out everything for good for those who love him? Well, Isaac's sons were both bad, so how could any of them be worthy of God's goodness? And yet, there they are. Well, here are some pictures. Here we have Esau begging for a bowl of stew. It was called red stew, and so partly because of that, maybe because he had a reddish skin, he was called Edom, which means red. Here's another picture. This is Isaac, old Isaac, blind now, blessing Jacob, and you see the goat skins on his arms and his neck. And then here's one of Jacob after he fled from his brother's presence, and at night slept with a rock for a pillow, and he had a vision of a staircase with angels ascending and descending into heaven. And then here is a last picture that I picked, and this represents Jacob wrestling with the angel and asking for a blessing. Interesting concept. So let's get into it. Now, there had been a divine prediction before the 2 boys were born, while they were still in Rebekah's womb. And there's a phrase in that prediction in chapter 25 of Genesis, verse 23, the 4th part. "And the older will serve the younger." Interesting words. So I want to ask you to think with me about this. Was the mistake the blessing given in deceit, was this divine election, or was it free moral agency or moral choice? Well, kind of an interesting question. You see, God's choice of Jacob over Esau, that was predicted, that the older would serve the younger, was not contrary to their own wishes. See, the brothers themselves had desired these things and actually did things to kind of help God and set it in motion. So God may have known their hearts, and since God is present in the future, he knows the future, even though he doesn't cause all the things that happen. But he doesn't lose control in them. What we see in this chapter is that by a moral choice, Esau despised his birthright. Now that means that he did not value it. his values are skewed. And then we see that through the scheme of Rebekah and of Jacob, the birthright was what is called supplanted in the King James Version. Supplanted is an interesting word. In the Latin, it comes from the plant of the foot. To supplant is to put under, or it's a subjugate kind of thing. But it isn't just with people, it's with things. So in this story, each son exercised his free will to set things in motion, just exactly the way the story turns out. And actually, there's no injustice in it on God's part. Now, there are groups of people today who blame God and blame the line of Jacob for deceiving and stealing, but actually they're the ones that set in motion for the blessing to fall on Jacob. I think Moses is the author of this portion, and he conveys a lesson. And he does it very skillfully and carefully through the story. I believe that he is divinely inspired, but it's a human, Moses, writing the story. And in it we are shown a disheartened father. His name is Isaac. Now he's blind, and so he doesn't see much value in living, even though later it tells us that he lived about 80 more years after this. And then, of course, he's going to be disheartened by having been deceived. And then we see the rejected son. His name is Esau. Now, he's rejected because he himself did not value spiritual things and things like birthrights. So he got weaseled out of it because he wasn't careful to protect it. And then there's a successful plan to steal the blessing by Jacob and his mother, Rebekah. And Rebekah may have remembered the divine prophecy about the older serving the younger, and she may have been trying to help God. You know, it's kind of hard to know what all was going on here. But the writer here, I believe Moses, allows the words of dismay and anger of each of the participants in the story to express the central theme that he's trying to get across to us. Isaac says, I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed. So here we see that the blessing of Abraham now falls on the head and shoulders of Jacob rather than Esau. And there are occasions in the Bible where the blessing of the firstborn falls to the secondborn. We have a number of cases like that. As in the case of Judah, it goes all the way down to the fourthborn. But Esau was deceived. He said, he has deceived me these 2 times. He took my birthright, and now he has taken my blessing. Now there's a play on words in there, and I want to come back to this in verse 36. But notice how, in the dismay, the central theme is being highlighted. So by their own choice, the will of God is realized. God had said that the blessing of Abraham would flow through Jacob. There are elements in the scheme that are kind of interesting that Rebekah and Jacob cook up. One of the things is complexity. Imagine trying to make a goat taste exactly like wild game. Well, maybe the wild game was a wild goat, so maybe it wasn't that complicated. But to cook it in time, and just barely in time, because as Jacob was leaving, Esau came back. So almost got caught in the deceptive process. Isaac desires his favorite meal of wild game and asks his son Esau to go hunting and find some and prepare it for him. Now the picture we have is of the priority of appetite here. So Isaac wants a special kind of food to prepare him to pass along the blessing. Rebekah, on the other hand, concocts a scheme. So Jacob knew it was wrong and that it was risky, and obviously his conscience is pricked, but all the parties override the clues, the sense that something is wrong, the sense that we're going to do wrong in all of this. So Rebecca says, let the curse fall on me. That's an interesting thing, to be able to risk it all. And if there's a curse, I'll take it. Then it took both deceit and lying on the part of Jacob. He had to lie not once but several times. I am your firstborn. God helped me. Your God helped me. And so are you my son? Yes, I am. Okay, our son Esau. The Lord your God gave me success, he says. Now, the scheme only partly deceived Isaac. The story has in it several clues that Isaac overrode. The voice, the smell deceived him, but there were several things that he just had a sense that something wasn't right, and he just stormed right over it all. How did you find it so quickly? The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. When Isaac caught the smell of Esau's clothes, so touch and the physical sense trumps sound, and it trumps conscience in all this case. Another thing that's interesting is the meaning of their names, and it reflects their character. For instance, Jacob means deceiver, and so Esau plays that. Is his name not Jacob? Isaac means laughter, and in this case, it's the laughter of a fool. He's pictured as too old and too blind to distinguish between his two sons, even though he had a sense about it. And then the mention of a good meal casts Isaac in the same fleshly mold as Esau. In other words, Esau had, a priority for a nice bowl of stew, but Isaac has a hankering for some special kind of game, well prepared as well. Esau, and there's the word red, and some say the red comes from the red stew, but Esau means red, and we have this comment in 25:30. That is why he was also called Edom. Okay, so the nation of Edom flows from Esau. Another little detail here is that the link to the unfolding of prophecy is given us here. So the blessing that is passed on from Isaac to Jacob links the previous to the future narratives that the author is going to show us. And this is the bridge that takes us across it. So Jacob's strategy has been to wrestle the blessing from Isaac. And we'll see that in just a little bit, he's going to be in a wrestling match with an angel asking for a blessing again. So while Isaac was now fully convinced, he passed along the blessing of Abraham. Verse 29, may those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. Also, this foreshadows Jacob's later prophecy, that when he blessed his own sons, especially Judah, the fourthborn, regarding the kingship and the house of Judah. And the words are, be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. That's kind of interesting. That's Judah, the sons, and the mother is Leah. And they're the sons that sold Joseph off into slavery in Egypt, and now they're going to bow down to Judah. I want you to see in this the irretrievability of a lost blessing. Now, even in New Testament times, we can grieve the Holy Spirit. We can do something by which we can call the Holy Spirit Satan, and God has no other avenue by which to draw us to himself and to convince and convict of sin and so on than the Holy Spirit. So if we call the Holy Spirit Satan and we reject that, that's what's called the unforgivable sin. But when we do some things, when we become ultimately profane like Esau, we can lose God's blessing, and it is irretrievable. There isn't a second chance. Now, some Christians in the Roman Catholic tradition have come to believe in something called purgatory, which is a kind of a second chance. But the Bible doesn't offer any kind of a second chance. Our chance, our day of grace, is in this life while we have breath in this physical body. So Esau is left as a disappointed and angry loser. And this is generational. When later in Romans we read, Jacob I loved and Esau I hated. You're not talking about the individuals there. Paul is talking about the nations that came from them. But Esau sees himself as a victim. And he's victimized by his more resourceful brother, who's bold and daring in the scheme along with his mother. And Esau is broken and undone. And we read, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry. And like I mentioned, there's a play on words in this verse. I want to point it out. He has deceived me these 2 times. He took, and la croix is it's pronounced differently the first time than it is the second time. He took my birthright, bekorati, and now he has taken, and the word taken is loqua, and it's pronounced. I highlight the A because the A has a little different pronunciation in the Hebrew the second time than the word does in the first one. And then my blessing is different than birthright, even though it's a play on words. The birthright is bekorati, and blessing is birkati, and so they sound kind of the same, but it's a different word. And so the writer is highlighting some things by the play on words in that particular verse. Isaac recounted the main points of the blessing that he had given mistakenly on to Jacob rather than to Esau. I have made him lord over you, and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. And the whole thing is, what else can I give you? And weeping, Isaac says, you will serve your brother. So the idea that the lost blessing is irretrievable, even by the one who gave it, the Father, underscores for us in New Testament times a warning of carelessness and what's called profanity. So let me just ask, what do you think of when you hear the word profanity? Well, we have a tendency to think of cussing and using the Lord's name in vain. Well, yes, but profanity is actually an upside-down value system where we value what is earthy and what is temporal, and despise, in a sense, value less, what is eternal and ultimately valuable. So profanity is an upside-down value system. So you use God's name carelessly and in anger or in an attempt to gain power you do not have, and so on. Well, that's just in chapter 27. There's a little more in the chapter, but the writer has now shown us the why and the how the blessing goes to Jacob instead of Esau. And the patriarchs are going to be, from here on in the Bible, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Those are the 3 patriarchs. God was in the process of raising up a nation, and these are the details of how it happened. Thanks for joining me tonight. It's good to have you along, and I'll try to be with you again next week. God bless you.